Hello and welcome. In this introduction session, so I'm going to talk about the overview of it, what we are going to do that in the entire course. We will talk about the what is Terraform in details with right plan and create infrastructure as a code, especially infrastructure as a code executions plan, resource graph, and change automation. And the partnership with AWS, Terraform template defined in the declarative approach, immutable Terraform maintain local and remote state, Terraform work in on-premises or in the cloud. Comparing with a Terraform versus other tools, and Terraform, it's a highly rated in that in XBLF by the XBLF in periodic table of DevOps tools. And Terraform we can also use that in as a infrastructure as a code, and we'll talk about more details while doing that in lectures, followed by that in lectures. And these are the topic I'm going to cover in details, but all example will be done in that in AWS accounts, whereas I'll mark that in what are the resources going to be chargeable and what are the resources going to be like in free of cost. And installations part and understanding the different commands in details, and followed by that in real time example you will see that in end-to-end running, and I'll upload that in resource as well. In upcoming sessions, like in session lectures, we'll also talk about that in AWS part as well. So if you are not aware about that in AWS, so you will understand that in at least what are the resources I'm going to create. And like in AWS regions and availability zones, creating that in users group role policy and how to set that in account with a Terraform itself, and AWS VPC in details, especially creating the VPC subnet, public subnet, private subnet, route table, internet gateway, and net gateway. And after that you'll also provision that in one end-to-end services where we'll run that in one statics website with a www.a2info.com, and followed by that in these are the infrastructures. So this is all about in overview lectures, and for more details just go through that in all sections and introductions or like in course contents. And thanks for choosing Terraform this course. I'll be make sure update that in entire contents as soon as possible. Thanks.
Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform architecture. So we'll have a Terraform binary in any operating system with a Windows, Mac, or Linux, or any other operating system. And along with that, we need a different TF file. That TF file it may be have um, main.tf, which will be have a number of resource including the module, and then a start.tf vrs, which is nothing but a number of variables file, and the plugins. So that plugins will be either in form of a Terraform provider and or in any other plugins. And on top of that, we'll have a modules which is related to that in your resource. And after that, we'll have AWS cloud provider. So AWS cloud provider is it will be work as a bridge between Terraform and AWS and provide the connectivity for performing that in all resource in Terraform. It will be create into that in a AWS. So once we'll have everything like in configure until that in AWS cloud provider, then while writing the Terraform file, we'll able to create that in AWS VPC, private subnet, public subnet, router, internet gateway, and custom route table. These are the just a example, but you will create the whatever resource available into that in AWS and supported by that in Terraform. So on and off each and every resource whenever say AWS launch at the same time, or like in around that Terraform like in a resource and data and other details will be available. So in brief, that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform installation in Windows 10. So open the any browser and type the terraform.io/downloads.html. I'm using the Windows 10, so and 64-bit, so I just need to be click 64-bit, but you can choose that in respective operating system and just download it. After clicking that, you'll download zip file will be downloaded and just extract it into that in your respective folder. I have did that in C clone of software Terraform and then bin folder, and that I have placed that in a Terraform binary. So there is only one file you will be get that for any operating system, which is Terraform, and that's a applications executable file, you know. After that installations, we need to set that in a path. So just type the this and you'll be get something this PC, right click on that and you'll get the sub property windows, click on the properties again, and then you'll get something like that windows, click on the advanced system settings, and then again sub windows will be appear like in system properties, click on the environment variables, and then you will be get something like that environment variables windows, and just double click on the path and you'll be get again sub windows, click on the new and type that in, you know, locations where your binary is there. In case of mine, C colon softwares, Terraform and Bean, click on the OK, click on the OK, click on the OK, and close these windows. And after that, in setting the path, you'll have to just open the command prompt, just type cmd, and a window will be appear like something command prompt. Just click on that, and you'll get something like that, and type Terraform and hit enter. After hitting enter, you'll get something like that, meaning Terraform is installed and your environment variable has been configured successfully. And that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform pros and cons. So let's talk pros and cons in details. So pros is that for Terraform, like it's a declarative language, and inbuilt state management, maintain the version history of the infrastructure, use a client-only architectures, immutable, open source, and orchestrations tools, and only support that in interpolations only expressions are deprecated in 0.12 version. And what are the cons? Cons is therefore does not support rollback after failure and does not support dry inbuilt features and declarative language limitations, as we know. So all this will be talk in more details once we'll do that in, you know, exercise, and I'll point that in one by one in that in the problem area, whatever we are like in, you know, pros what we have at the moment. So that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform, providers. So we have to understand the this in details. So we'll understand that in what is the Terraform provider, how we'll get the AWS access key and secret key created into that in AWS, and then configuring the provider and just running that in a few examples as a demo. So let me go. So what is the Terraform provider? A provider is a, as we'll talk about that in a bridge between that in Terraform and AWS, or a plugins which will provide the connectivity from the Terraform to AWS with help of a AWS configuration, like in credential or authentication. So, what is the syntax of a Terraform provider? The provider is the keyword, and then a space, in double inverted comma. We have to just type the AWS, and again double inverted comma, parenthesis, and close. Inside that, you will have a versions, region, and some other key attributes as well. So we'll talk in more details in one by one. So just understand that in for writing that in a provider, you have to provide the start with a provider keyword and then name of the provider cloud. So we are using AWS. So just like in type the AWS in a small and open parenthesis and close. So in the authentications we have here four way to connect. And we'll talk one by one all four. And What are those? So aesthetics credential, environment variables, share credentials file, and EC2 role. So these are the four ways we can get the connectivities from that in Terraform to that in AWS. Let's talk about that in aesthetics credential. So in aesthetics credentials, what is the disadvantage is that for these ones, um, like in, you have to mention the provider and name of the provider regions, whatever is your like in regions. Have you the US West 2 or 1 or whatever, and then access underscore key and secret key. We have to provide that in this file. So there is a once you'll check in this code, there is a possibility to check into the public repository, and your access key and secret key is like in misuse. So this way is not a recommended way. So note this method is not recommended as there will be chance to commit the code in repository and misuse. And so let's do that in demo. So before that, we have to understand that in what is the access key and what is that in secret key. So most probably you are aware about them. Then there is no need to follow that. In you can start skip that in few minutes, or just let me go log into that in AWS console and see it. So what is that in AWS access key and secret key? So first of all, you have to open the AWS, login into AWS console, click on the service, and then IAM, or you can type it IAM. So I'm just going to create one demo users or training users on group, and then I'll create that in one key. So let me create that in user. So just click on that in demo, and I'll choose that in programmatic and aesthetics, and I'll choose the custom password. Click on the next, which will give you the permissions. I'll create that in a group. We'll say that in demo group, admin group, and assign to that in a permissions as administrator, or like in drill down as per your wish. So demo admin created, and I'll just assign that users to that in demo admin, and click on that next, not required, and click on the review, and click on the create user. Now the demo users created with admin permissions. At the same time, we got that in access key and secret key. So just you have to copy this key, and just copy this key and place into that in here, like in access key, my underscore access key, just replace that in even the double inverted comma not required. Similarly, copy that in a secret key, just click on the show copy and just paste into that in a secret key, which is over here. I'll do that in a our examples, so you'll get that. Now this user's created, and just click on the close. Our users is working perfectly. So same way I have created the Terraform users, and I'm going to remove these users, and I'll use that in Terraform users and their details. Okay, so let me go now that in a folder structures where I have a Terraform provider, just right click on that, and same syntax is there, something like that. Uh, let me let me close that in all other files. I'm sorry about that. So this is the code we have, where I have like an access key, this is the secret key, and US East 1. And the only thing is there, here we are putting the hard-coded value, which is not good indirectly in the provider. In this example, so let me open the command prompt and copy the path where we have a Terraform provider, cd into that path, and just do that in Terraform init. This is the first command. So what it will be do, it will be downloading the provider plugins. If you see now, checking for available provider plugins, and started downloading. So the AWS HashiCorp AWS plugin is there 2.60.0, and it's downloading. So it's all depend on that in internet speed, and it will be downloaded into that in under that in TF folder. So if I'll go to that in a folder structures, now we have here .terraform, and inside that in that plugin is downloaded. So it's saying that in Windows underscore AMD64 because we have downloaded, and this is that in another plugins file downloaded for AWS. Sorry, AWS Terraform provider for AWS, and that is a versions. And the log file will be there. It will be work for log. We'll talk in bit later. So in this lectures, for like in this demo, that's all. And for like in a statics credentials file, we talk about that in provider, name of the provider and region, which region access key and secret key, and we provided the access key and secret key. Same access key and secret key, I'm going to use that in for other one. So this demo is already done. Now we have another way is like in environment variables. So environment variable we can use that in for like an AWS Terraform provider. So in that case, there is a two-way in that in Unix like operating system or Mac, you can use set that in the variable by export command with a like in tf underscore vrs underscore AWS access key underscore ID. Similarly, AWS secret key ID and AWS default region or region. And in Windows, you can set that in that variable by the set command and tf underscore vr underscore AWS underscore access underscore key underscore ID and that access key, secret key, and then reason. You'll be get something like that. Let me go and do that in demo. So open the folder structures and go to that in Terraform provider example 2. So what I have did that I have just created that in one file. That file is just a bat file, and that bat file is executable where I have just put that in access key and secret key, and this is that in region. And let me go copy that directory structures for Terraform 2 provider and cd into the folder and just do that in Terraform init. Ah, and before that just we need to set that in. So we have a env file, and just will click that in that variable will be set into that in environment level. If you want to confirm echo echo and then percent and name of the variable. So this is all this is the good way because the limit your access key and secret key is not going to check in into the repository. Only it will be there that in your local PC, and this is the value. And so it's setting that in environment level, and that variable will be used that in the provider. So this way you can use that. And first one it's not suggested. Second one you can use it if you want. And let's talk about that in a third method, whatever we have. Share credentials file. So share credentials file will be preferable because you can run that in AWS CLI followed by that in Terraform as well. So in share credentials file, what we have to do, we have to like in same way what we did that in a previous one. Only thing is that there is a one attribute is there share underscore credentials underscore file, and you have to create one credentials file under AWS, and then you have to .aws, and then you have to set that in that credentials like access key and secret key, and the profile you have to just put that in and default. So let me go and check that in what is there into that in a credentials file. So for that just open that in c colon slash and you have to create it. I have already did that in users trainings, and then AWS just click on the credentials file, and in that credentials file you will see that in default, which is the profile, AWS access key underscore ID, AWS secret AWS underscore secret underscore access underscore key, and that key. And um, So let me go and do that in the demo as well. So for that we have 103, and inside 103 we are using something like that, where we have a region, we have share credentials file, and we have a profile, and with help of that we'll be get the connectivity from AWS to Terraform, or Terraform to that in AWS, vice versa as well. Terraform to that in AWS, not AWS to Terraform. I'm sorry. So what is next? There is a, so this method we are going to use that in going forward. I'll not repeat. So what I'll do before going to that in any lectures, I'll just use the provided AWS region, share credentials file and profile. On basis of that, I'll get that in connectivity. Note, and one more important aspect, don't try to use that my access key and secret key, because immediately I'm going to drop the delete that in once this recording is done. Add that in the end, and you also don't share that credentials with other until unless you know them, and if they are not working in your team, because that is a that will be have a admin level access, and that if anyone will misuse, they can do that in whatever they want. So demo done. Fourth one, we have a Zoom role. So these ones will be do that in once you have a multiple AWS account. So in that case, you have just used that in assume underscore role, one attribute, and the sub attributes is there role ARN, assume name, and external underscore ID, where you need another AWS account ID and role and the name of the role. So for that, there is a two AWS account is needed, and which will I'll not cover, but you can use that in as it is. Just you have to change that in a role name and create one role. So we'll talk about that in what is that in role and creating that, and then we'll be get that in more details on this part. So as of now, I'll just understand that in this is the fourth way to get the connectivity from Terraform to AWS with help of a Zoom role. And all in all, you'll get that in a reference from Terraform IO docs providers AWS index.html, where we'll have full details of that provider. And let me go and delete that in access key and secret key for what I have created. Otherwise, most probably you will also try in past. So many others members also have a try. So here we have AWS access key and secret key, and that my demo is done, and I don't want to share with anyone, so I'll be go, and here we go. So it's a deleted, and there is in going forward, I'll create that in one another one for further lectures, but that key I'll be not sharing to that in video, especially invisible. So you have to make sure don't use that in other one, and even though don't share that, and which is not good. And this is the learning, for learning, misusing any other options is not ethical. So that's all about in these lectures, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform variables. So declaring an input variable using input variable values, type constant, input value documentations, variables on command line, variable definitions, .tfr files, environment variables, complex hyphen typed values, variable definitions, precedency, and custom violations rule. So in declaring an input variable, so start with a variable keyword, then in double inverted comma name of your variable, and the close it and parentheses and type, and equals to name type, like in a string, and close it. For example, variable availability underscore zone underscore name, and type list string, and default value US hyphen west hyphen 1A. So declaring an input variable, so variable with a different like complex type, like in type list, and then object. Inside that we have internal number, external number, and protocol, and then default value as a internal 8300 external 8300 protocol TCP. And declaring an input variable, some restrictions we have, like the name of the variable can be any valid identifier except the following, like source, versions, provider count, 4 underscore each, life cycle, depends underscore on and locals. So if you use this keyword in that in name of the variables, that will be not work. After using input value variables, how we are going to use with help of a var keyword and dot name of the variable. For example, variable image underscore id and some value. So in the resource sections, we are going to resource name of the AWS resource and the name of the AWS resource name and the name of that in Terraform resource name, and then instance type T2 micro and the variable var dot image underscore id and then reference or key of that in variable. And type constant, so supported keywords are a string, number, boolean, and that the type constants allow you to specify complex types such as collections, list type, set type, map type, object attributes name and equals type, and tuples. So these are the type constants and complex type constants we are going to use. And how we are going to input variable documentation. So in that, defining the variables or declaring the variable, just use the descriptions keyword and then equals to name of the descriptions or whatever you are going to describe. So that will be give that in more visibility of that variable and the purpose of the variable in details to understand the other developer after the variables on the command line. So it's early to discuss this command, but it's okay. Let's talk. So just understand that in Terraform apply and then hyphen var and equals to name of that in a image underscore id and equals to variable. Similarly, you can use the complex type more than one value and like in list or like in other complex data type. And variable definitions in under that in .tfvrs file. So def.tfvrs file is image underscore id equals to name of the image, availability underscore zone underscore name equal to name of the availability zone. So Terraform then apply hyphen, how we are going to use hyphen var hyphen files and name of the file name. So files name exactly terraform.tfvrs or terraform.tfvrs.json, any files with a name ending in the .auto.tfvrs or auto.tfvrs.json. How you're going to use that in variables, input variables in environment variables with help of a tf underscore vr underscore. So we already discussed this part on that in declaring that in a variable in that in provided sections of environment level. So with help of a set or export command, just we have to use the tf underscore vr underscore, but that will be omitted, and in the terraform.tf file just we have to use that in variable name as image underscore id, and that will be considered and it will be fetch the data from the environment variable. Similarly, for complex data type, just define that in environment label and use that tf underscore vr underscore and the name of the variable and the complex value. Variable definitions precedency. So it will be a start from environment variable, the terraform.tf files if present, the terraform tf vars .json file if present, any start.auto tf vars files or start auto.tf vars .json file, and then whatever say any is there like in with help of a command line with hyphen vr or hyphen vr hyphen files. Uh, it's demo time. So let's go to that in open the all files. So these are the I'm going to use that in what is there in the variable. So the variable we have defined the AWS underscore default underscore regions, and the default value is US hyphen east one and description. Similarly, we have say our credentials file, which is we talked in that in a past, but it was there hard coded. Now we have a variable, and that variable we are locating into that in where we have our credentials file, and then our profile we have used that in default. Now it's there in the variable. And additional variable, I'm going to use that in IAM underscore user underscore name, and the default value I'm just using that in demo. Last variable we are going to use that in force underscore destroy, which is the boolean true. So this is the string, this is the string again, this is the string, and all are the string at the moment, and one boolean. Now, in the provider, we already talked. I'm going to use that in share credentials file, so I'm not going to talk again. And if need, you can refer that in a previous lectures. And so, AWS default region, we are fetching that in by that variable share credentials file and profile. And after that, additional command like in Terraform file, we are using as a resource, which is early to discuss, but okay. So, resource is that in keyword again. What are the resource, which is AWS underscore IAM underscore user. So we are going to create one identity and access management user in AWS. What is that in resource name we are using users, and what is the name of that in IAM users? We are going to refer that from that in our like in variables file, which is that in demo. And the force destroy, we are just using the from variable is equal to true, so it will be refer that value from force and destroy true. Let me open the command prompt and go into that in variable sections and perform the first command, Terraform init. It will be download the plugins for our Terraform AWS provider, and this is the these are the examples whatever we are going to do that in first time where we'll be validate that in Terraform to AWS connectivity. So init is done, and then just do that in a plan, or you can do that in few more commands like in validate whatever we have mentioned that in our command it's working perfectly or not. You can check it. Let's say I'm just going to remove that in E, and if I'll perform the validate, it will be a failure because it's saying that did you mean the resource? It's a guide like in helping also. So with help of a validate, you can check the syntax. After that, in a validate, we have a plan command. We'll talk these ones in more details in the command sections, but it will be similar like that. So let's go. So we understand Terraform init. So it will download the plugin. Validate will be check the syntax. Plan will be show that in how many resources is going to be create, destroy, change or destroy. So it will be say that in plan is going to add one resource, zero change and zero destroy. If I'll perform that in Terraform apply, and each and every command will be say that in some description. So now we can perform the Terraform apply, and that resource will be created. So let me go and log in into that in AWS console. So but before that, and what we need in apply, we have to say that in yes, and here we go, one resource added, and once you'll do the refresh, one demo users got added here. Now, this is all about into that in demo sections. But before that, I'll add one more thing. Once you are doing the apply, just do that in destroy as well, because this resource will be not cost, but other resource will be cost, and I'll guide you to remove that resource as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be charged. If you are just using for learning, it's not good for keep that in all resource. So better to create, learn, and destroy. Yeah. If I'll do refresh, that demo users will be removed. Now, yeah, that's all about in these lectures. And let me know if you have any questions in QA sections, and I'll be more than happy to answer. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform resource. So Terraform resource we already talk in not details, but how the Terraform resource syntax will be. So starting with a resource as a keyword and the name of that in AWS resource. So this will be exactly match that in whatever's there in the AWS resource, then only it will work. So we can consider this is the kind of another keyword as well, and that we need to refer from that in Terraform website. We'll see that in bit later. And the name of the resource, we can put that in anything for identifying you, like in web server or database server or like in a Nginx server or any other server. And then the mandatory attributes are there in that in AWS instance resource is AMI, and the value of AMI and instance underscore type T2 micro, or like in as per that in type of AWS exist. So let me go and see that in what are that in resource and how we'll find it. So in just open the Terraform IO documents and configurations there under resource, and you will be see that in all resource whatever's located, and you can see that. So if you use that in other than this keyword, it will be not work. So this is just a one example. We have all the services whatever's there in the AWS, it will be there in that. After that AMI and instance is mandatory. You can refer that in these ones a bit later. So the resource sections we understand the resource keyword, and that in double inverted comma whatever's resource exists in that in Terraform, then name of that in resource, and then the mandatory attribute. So you can find that in whatever the in optionals and mandate like in required attributes. So let's talk on that in additional attribute for like in resource. We have a depends on underscore on for a specific hidden dependency is required. Let's say we want to create a resource A and resource B. Okay, we'll talk in more details, and then we have account for creating a multiple resource instance according to that in account. So you 400 score each to create a multiple instance according to that in map or set of a string. Provider for selecting a non-default provider configurations lifecycle for lifecycle customizations, and provisioners and connections for taking extra actions after resource creations. So let's talk one by one. So depends on underscore one for a specific hidden dependency. Let's say we want to create one resource with AWS AMI underscore rule underscore policy, which depends on that in AWS IAM underscore rules policy dot example until unless that will be not created. So we can use that in depends underscore on keyword or attributes in the resource. After that we have a count. So for creating a multiple resource instance according to that in account. So let's say we have a resource AWS underscore instance and that in a server, but if we are providing the count is equal to 4, so create a 4 similar EC2 instance, and it will be a name that in server 1 2 3 4, and 0 1 2 3 4 starting from that in index count 0. After that we have a 4 underscore each to create a multiple instance according to the to a map or a set of strings. So define that in a variables and a subnet underscore id type list and resource AWS instance and set for each to a set. So it will be convert the list to the set, and it will be considered here sub id, and then we are just providing that in a each dot key. So each is nothing but a reference of a for each, and that in key, or we can use that in a value as well. After that, we have a provider for selecting a non-default provider configurations resource. Google Compute instance example. So we use that in provider inside that in any resource which is supported as a provider. In case of if you want to use that in multiple AW like in cloud provider, for example, AWS, Azure, or GCP, Google Cloud, or any other cloud, then in that case you have to just go and indicate that in hey this resource belong to that in a that cloud computing. you know. After that, in a provider, so we can put that in a alias as well. For example, we have a provider Google like in region, and we have provider Google and alias is a Europe and region. So in that case, you can also provide. Other than that, we have a life cycle. For life cycle customizations, resource AWS resource group, and you can put the life cycle is create underscore before destroy true. So first it will be create and then another resource will be destroyed. After that, we have a provisioner and connections for taking extra actions after resource creations. For example, if you want to, let's say like in resource created and you want to execute that in some command, like in copy the file from local server to that in a remote server or doing something like that. So in provisioner, you can use that in a local or like in remote, and ex is just a command, and that command will be executed into that in a either local or in that in a server with as what we are going to define. Similarly, we can put the conditions as well in that in a provisioners a local exe when it will be performed, when we are going to destroy, otherwise it will be escape it. And we can also use that in a multiple provisioner like in local exe just echo first, local exe echo second, and so on and so forth. After that, you can also put that in only execute in on terms of failure. So in that case, you have to just use that in on underscore failure and then continue or like in whatever you want to do. So let's go and do that in a demo. So for doing the demo, we need a uh, we have like in a Terraform 3.1 and the shorts demo, and these are the three files we have. Let me open and go through that in what are the three files. We have already talked in more details, but let's talk. So this is the variable what we have talked in past, like in username force destroy. Provided already we have talked about that in same provided we are going to use region, credentials, and profile, and then we have a users. So now here we have a two resource, one resource for AWS IAM user and name of the user. So demo users will be created, and another one we are just going to use that in a policy. So AWS IAM account AWS policy. So let me go and see that in these ones in website what is there into that. So if I'll go and type that in AWS policy. So as it is, we have to use that in. So if you'll see that in resource and AWS underscore IAM underscore account underscore password underscore policy, and just name, and then these are the attributes. So these you can see that in what are that in required. So all are that like in optional yet. Uh, optional. Yeah, almost everything, all attributes are optional, and there is no required, and you have like an import facility as well. But in even though it's optional, we have added that in uh, here we have added that minimum password length 8, true, and maximum password is 60, and password reuse prevention is a 5. So on basis of that, you will, while performing the command, you will be able to see that. So let me go and see that. So now I'm in that in our folder structures, we have provided user variables. So first command we have to do Terraform init. So what it's going to be do in IAM, one new users will be added, which we will talk that in a past. But other than that, for that users, we'll able to see that in security credentials. So if you see that in account setting at the moment, we don't have anything like in under that in set policy or password policy. But now if I'll perform that in apply, it will say that in two resource is going to be created or like in added. Yep. So two resource is going to be added, and just type yes. We'll able to see that in one new users created, and then one policy is also set. So if you'll go to that in user sections, now we got that in a demo. And if you click that in account settings, so we have like in 8 characters, 16 days, 5 preventions. So let me go and change that in that value, and let's see, if instead of a 5, I'll just put that in a 10, and again I'll perform that in apply. So one resource is going to be changed. One resource is going to be changed 5 to 10, and password reuse preventions, we'll see that in once this is done. And then in that in a GUI, if I'll go and refresh it, we don't have refresh here, so I'll just click that in one tab and another tab. So okay, now we got that in 10. So what I'll do, I'll go and again destroy it, which is last hour command. Yes, and then that resource will be destroyed. I'll go and verify that, and so if I'll refresh it, that password policy will be deleted. So there is no such password policy. Similarly, there is no users like in demo user. That's all about in these lectures, and let me know if you have any questions for this topic in Q&A sections. I'll be more than happy to answer, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about Terraform data source. So find the latest available AMI that is tagged with a component equals to babe. So how the data like in syntax will be there. So you start with a data and it's a keyword, and then in double inverted comma again the name of that in AWS resource, which is AWS underscore AMI, and then name of the data, and then we can use that in sub attributes one more time, like in filters, most recent, and few more attributes whatever they are associated with data. So, in let's say for in this example, what is happening? Let's say we have a data, and then we are putting that in a AWS underscore AMI, and just we are putting the name as a babe, and we are filtering. So, what we are filter name equals to a state. So inside that in AMI will have a state attributes, and that in a state value will be available. Then only it will fill. Second one, we have another filter with a tag component, and the name will be there in the babe, then only it will pull it. So, and what is that in the most recent? If that is there more than one, it will be there with a component is equal to babe and a state available. So it will be pull that in whatever's latest created. So for doing these ones, let me log in into that in AWS console and see that in what is that in AWS AMI. So go to that in service sections, and under that in EC2, click on the EC2, and under the EC2 come all the way down, and you'll get that in AMIs. So in AMIs, we'll get that in all list of that in AMIs, and from that in a AMI marketplace we can go and see that in all those AMI. Otherwise you can just click on that in instance, and click on the launch instance, and Here we get that in my AMI, AWS Marketplace AMI, or like in community AMI. So for community AMIs, you can just click on these ones, and so these are that in AMI you will be get that, and we'll talk in more details once we'll do that in instance creations. Yeah, so let me go and do that in a demo for that. So open that in command prompt, and we have these are that in files and associated with data. So we talk about the variables in details. Okay, let me clean that in all. We talk about the variables, all variables in past, like in default regions, share credentials, profile, IAM username, group name, and force destroy. So in these ones, I have just added the additional one, which is a group name. And now in that in users, we have same that in AWS username and that in password policy. In provider, as it is, there is no change as such, and there is your additional group file has been created as a resource. So AWS IAM underscore group, name of the admin group, and in name attributes we have provided that in a group name. So in variables also we will see that in one group. Okay, it's not there. Let me see it's failing or somewhere else defined. Okay, so what is there in that in data? And then a name of that in data, and that in user underscore name, username AWS IAM username, and that in name, and then in another data we have for group AWS data space group IAM group and admin underscore group and name group name, and just we are referring the group name from that in resource, like in AWS resource admin group and then name. So you can find that in we are referring that in these ones, this and then name in that in a data source, which is these ones. But as per my understanding, it will be error prompt. Let's see. So let me go into that in console and do that in first command is Terraform init. Terraform plan or validate, it will validate and throw that in error. If it is any, yeah, and then apply. Yeah, here we go. We got the three resource added, zero destroy. So what are the all resource added? So resource added, we just need to click in service, click on that in IAM, and we got that in one users, one group. So if you'll see that in users, we got that in a training underscore user. Under the group, we'll get that in demo underscore admin. Oh no, in training underscore admin group. Let me delete this ones, which is earlier one. Yeah, so training underscore admin group, and third one is like an account setting, which is the policy one. Yeah, let me go and destroy it. Yeah, so all resources destroy and we can go and refresh or check it. Like in group also we have only one, we don't have any users. User is also deleted, and we got the account setting policy also deleted. If I'll refresh it, all three resources deleted. What you understand in this lecture, just we understand how to define the data, but not by this example, by that in some other example, which will we are going to see that in a output in that in a next lecture. So thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions in Q&A section. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform output values. So output, the syntax of a output is start with a keyword output and then name of the output. You can put that in anything which is relevant to the resource. And then in the output, I have a value. So in the value, you can assign the simple type or complex type as per that in a resource. So here we are just providing the AWS underscore instance dot server dot private underscore IP. You can put that in as it is whatever's there in the resource sections and their attribute as per the availability. And let's talk in more. So you can put that in output in a more details, like in descriptions, which will give them more value or like in more visibility for the developer and other users. They can identify that in what is the purpose of the output while adding the just a keyword as a descriptions and equals to name of the descriptions. And if you'll do that in like in another in output, you can put that in sensitive equals to true, which will be give that in if something is related to the password, which will not print into that in in a apply command, but at the time of output or like in so it will be printed. So just we have to do that in Terraform apply. Then if you put the sensitive equal true, it will not printed. In output also you can put that in depends underscore on what we talk about then in resource sections. So before printing these ones onto that in a console, it will be like make sure that in dependency is also there. So let's talk into that in demo. So I have already opened that in a folder, and these are the files we have for demo. So the same thing I'm referring that in a previous ones. Other than that, I have just added that in, let me go through that in quickly. So these are the variables we have, like in group name, training underscore admin group, force destroy true, IAM underscore user underscore name training, and profile we have a default here, credentials file we have like locations of the share file and AWS default region, and then we have provider as it is, so there is no change in the provider. Then we have a user, so in users we are creating that IAM users and that in IAM account password policy, and the group file additional set into that in resource sections as it is in the previous one. And then earlier it was their only data source, but now we have a output along with a data source. So we have a data AWS IAM users and name a user underscore name, and but what we are going to, so just copy this one AWS IAM underscore user, and that in this is that in name. So let me go to that in user sections. So here if you'll find that in this is that in tag, I'm using that in after the resource AWS underscore IAM underscore user, and then this name of that in user and then name. So if you'll see here, that is after resource and then that name of the resource, and inside that in attribute whatever's there into the AWS, like in resource sections. So it will be just take the reference from that in AWS IAM user, AWS underscore IAM underscore users, their username, and it will put assign to that in user underscore name. But now what is this is the just a placeholder. Now with help of this placeholder, we want to put that in a output. So how we have to refer that in that placeholder, just a data, that is a data, and then name of that in AWS IAM user, and then a name of that in this third field, which is user underscore name, and then fourth field, which is the attribute one, so user underscore name. You can change these ones relevant. At the moment I have just put that in user underscore name, so it's a referring as it is. So it's a referring the user underscore name, but in another example in output I'm just printing the user underscore ID. So data, again the data in data and name of the data whatever is the AWS data, then a username, and instead of that attributes I'm using that in a additional attribute which is supported by that in AWS underscore IAM underscore user. And if you want to print that in all users details, so like in attribute, so don't put that in any last field like in user underscore name or user underscore ID, just put that in user underscore name up to that in a last data tab, so it will print that in each and everything. Similarly for group as well, data AWS IAM group and name of the group and that in group name. So in output just we want to print that in everything, so value and data and AWS IAM group and admin underscore group. So this will be print that in everything, and output group on only name. So that will be print that in only name of the group. Let me go and do it. So open the command prompt and we have an example for these ones. Terraform 5.0 output value. So what is the first command? Terraform init, and what I'll do in each and every recording sections, video section, lecture sections, I'll be upload this zip file. You can download and go through that. So Terraform and then init. So it will be download the provider, done, and then I'll just start apply command. So output and data will be for that in, which will be help from mapping from one place to another, and it will be give more clarity onto that in end user who is performing this task, and they will see that in what is happening on that in, console, and that will be for reference purpose also. So if you'll see that in a group, we printed that in group, so everything is printed. However, we printed the group name, so it's printing that in training underscore admin group. Similarly for users, all details printed and then user ID and then username. So by this way we can get that in output, and you can also perform that in this command by that in output. So we'll just get that in output only instead of getting everything. And after doing this one's last command is destroy, and don't forget it because we don't want to do code create and destroy. Code create, learn and destroy. This policy will follow. So if I'll perform that in a show command, so it will be nothing because there is no such a state, and no output as well because there is no such output. And that's all about in these lectures for output sections. We'll talk please let me know if you have any questions in Q&A sections for this topic. I will let you know. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform commands, like Terraform init, Terraform fmt, Terraform validate, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and Terraform show, and Terraform destroy, and Terraform output as well, which is not mentioned in that. I'll refer that in same demo what we did that in Terraform 5.1 for output, and I'll perform that in all these command, and we'll see that in more details. So let's talk before that in going ahead, because I have almost used that in all command. So what is exactly do? So Terraform init, it will be go and download that in a provider or like in a state file if you are using that in local state or remote state. We'll talk these ones local and remote like in that provided along with a state and module in upcoming sessions. Once we'll do that in a module example on a state file in like in a AWS S3 bucket. So, but just understand that now Terraform init is going to initialize and download the all dependency whatever is required for that, either the plugins, either the module, or either that in a, a state file from that in a like in S3 bucket, or like in any third party which is supported by that in S state. After that in Terraform we have a format FMT. So Terraform format will be do that in a formatting of the code. So it will just format that in a default one, and it will be saved the file accordingly. And if you perform the Terraform file date, so Terraform file date will be checked that in a syntax, or we can say that this is the kind of syntax checking, whatever we have mentioned. If any AWS resource or any mistake is there into that, it will be prompted out that in all yeah, with help of a welded Terraform plan. It will be so that in what exactly going to be happen on number of resources going to be added, change or destroy, or like in create change or destroy. So that plan will be very important while doing that, especially in the productions or like in movement from one environment to that in another environment. And if you're going to do that in changes like in especially in the productions, make sure you are reviewing the plan before apply. And after plan we have like in you can perform the apply, or you can perform the destroy. It's all depend on if you have already applied that in first time, so second time you can perform the plan before destroy, and we can see that in what are the resource going to be destroyed. And with help of a Terraform apply, it's going to be created the resource, and we have a few parameters for apply as well, sub commands. So we'll see that in the details. And for plan also we have the sub command, so we can pass that in a, a state file. You can put pass that in auto approve for apply. In there you no need to type that in yes. And similarly we have a Terraform show, which will be print that in whatever's there in that in current state. If you have already performed the apply, you can perform that in a show, and we can see that in whatever's result like in resource created, or like in at the moment there are the current state file. And Terraform we have a destroy. So after destroy, the all resource is going to be destroy. And Terraform destroy also have a like in reference attributes, and we'll see in detail. So now the demo section, so go to that in command, I mean that in 501. So at the moment nothing is there. Okay, Terraform provided we have already. Terraform init, and it's saying that it's already there. And then initialization's done. So if you'll see that in it's a initialize the backend, which is that in local one, initialize the provider plugins and the versions downloaded for 2.60. And it's saying that in next command we can perform that in Terraform plan. So before Terraform plan, let me go and do that in some change into the code. So what I'll do, I'll open the cyclone. I'll go to that in where I have here files. So this is the my demo file I have, and I'm in the 501. So in 501, what I'll do some changes in here, and I'll just put that in this ones like this, and let's see it's changing the formatting or not. Yeah, so I did the changes, and I'll perform the Terraform format, and now it's formatted to file in groups and user. So if I'll go to here, it's asking changes. So if see that in it's formatted, it's put that in one space over here, one space, but this one is remaining there. So if you want to format, and if there is any space related issue on inside the attribute, it will be formatted out. So after that we have a validate. Validate, even though we talked on that in previous lecture, so it will be just validated that, and if not success, then in that case you have to do that in some changes. Let's say I want to produce some error, and I'll add that in a one, and then validate it is detecting or not. Yeah, so it's saying that in due to that in one dependency, it's got failure for everywhere, because what is saying that in data.output file line number 6, I am user 1, the provider does not support that in data source. So because AWS provider, there is no such data source defined for this name in AWS, due to that, and the reference we are there in down, so all got you like in error prompt. So what I'll go and do that in, I just do that in exactly same, and if I'll perform that in again validate, it will be done. So generally once you'll do that in implement that in actual DevOps, in that time what you will be do this validate, will be put that in one pipeline. So once that in you will do that in development, it will do the format and it will do the validate. If there is any validations failure, it will be redirect to that in the development team, it will not move further. Or before checking that in a code, most probably you'll make a habit to do the validate command, and then only you'll check in that into the repository. So you can make it. After that we have a plan. So while doing that in a plan, it will be bring that in what are the resource going to be created, change, modify and deleted. Yeah, so if you'll see the three resource is going to be add, zero change and zero destroy. After that plan we have a apply. So it's asking yes, and so it will be go and create that in all three resource, and it will print the output if output is there, and that resource will be also printed. And just I want to take a help. So in that in like in apply, we can pass that in var file, var variable and the value. Target we can set, we can put the state, we can state the path, we can refresh, we can parlent, no catch, input true, log time, log, and backend path also we can put, and we can put that in auto approve as well. So let's say if I'll go and remove this one, and it'll put that in auto approve. So now the yes prompt will be not come what it was coming on earlier. I'll use that in hyphen auto hyphen approve for destroy. Then you will come to know that because this resource is already created, and in destroy also you are able to see that in yes prompt. So now it's saying that in auto approve. So again, the auto approve auto hyphen approve will be work for like in doing that in a uh, like in automations, while using that in any tools we can perform that in auto approve. Otherwise it will be asked that in input, so user input is required in that time. So now all resources are destroy. So I again I'll create it because I want to show you that in some details, especially a state file. So if you'll see each and every time once you are performing here with the two state file is created, first time it will create only one, next executions it will be create a backup, again it will be swap like that. So at the moment it's created a info, and the log file is also there, and this is the state file. And if I'll go and see that in show command, so it will be print from that in a state file. And same if you'll open that in that state file, you will able to see that in all whatever's printing, from here itself in with help of a show command. So this state file will talk into the more details each and every time, and this is the very important, especially while the productions, for making sure you have like in a state file in that in some remote locations for if there are a number of like in a DevOps persons is working or implementations team, otherwise you'll get that in some problem. So and after that, in a state file, destroy, you understand that we have a output as well. So output will be get that in whatever's mentioned in the to that in output sections. And let me go and destroy this resource. So in high level, these are the commands I'm going to use that in almost all lectures. So make sure you are doing that in the understanding this. These are the commands and doing the exercise which will be help it out for understand one by one. And after creations, make sure you are going to destroy if any resource is there for like which is costing out. You can check it from that in AWS console, whatever resource is going to be cost. So far so forth, whatever I have used the resource, there is no charge for that, and there is no charge. I'll notify that in whenever charge will be occur in case of like after creations. So that's all about in these lectures, and if you have any questions, let me know in QA sections. I'll be more than happy to answer as soon as possible. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about symbols used in Terraform. Generally, these are the symbols you will be get that once you will perform that in Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and Terraform destroy. So while doing that in plan, apply, and in destroy. So at the time of a plan, you'll be either see that in a plus symbol or like in a home symbol or like in a hyphen. So the plus symbol, once you will see that in any resource, meaning that resource is going to be add and the number count will be display. And after that, in that resource is successfully added by Terraform apply, then you will be get that that resource is added. And similarly for like in once you'll do that in a plan, it will be so that in here these are the number of resources going to be changed, and once that is a like in done by Terraform apply, then it will be considered as number of resource changed. And similarly for a destroy as well, but just remember the plus symbol indicate that in adding the new resource, going to be add new resource, and caret symbol will going to like do that in number of resource is going to be changed and or like in change, and similarly for a destroy with indicating by the hyphen. So all this will be see that in with help of only Terraform plan, apply, and destroy command. So let me go and have more details. So once you'll see that in a plus symbol, meaning these are the resources going to be created, and if you'll see that in a number one to added, meaning one resource is going to be added. Similarly, you will get that in more than one. If there is nothing is going to be done, then it will be said that in zero change or zero destroy. Similarly, for like in change also, meaning these are the resources going to be changed. So earlier it was something different, but it's a tag name got changed from demo VPC to demo VPC1, and it's stated that now want to be changed. And similarly for destroy also, once you'll do that in Terraform destroy command, you'll be see that in a hyphen and indicate that that mean that like in resource is going to be destroy. So you'll get that in destroy count, and this is very important. Once you do that in actual Terraform implementations for your actual project, and you have to review the plan before executions, and every time once you'll perform that in Terraform command, you have to careful about that in symbol or like in at least like in plan or like in actions, whatever say happen for add, change, and destroy. So that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to create AWS key AWS security group, changing that in additional support for 80 and 22 after creations of EC2 instance, and how to use that in MobiX term tool, and followed by that there is two demos: Terraform 601 instance and Terraform 602 instance key and other operations. So let me go and log in into AWS console for just going through that in how to create AWS key and set that into that in MobiX. So I'm in that in AWS console. So just click on the service, click on the EC2, and then you'll be come all the way down, and you'll be see that in a key pair, and in this key pair just you have to create that in, but before that, in creating that, make sure you are changing that in your region. So I want to use that in US East 1, and I have created in past a training underscore key, but you can create it like that. Just click on the create and put that in name of that in demo. And if you are going to use that in Windows, you can directly use that in putty, or you have any software like in for using that in OpenSSH, then you can generate that in PEM file. So I have generated that in PEM, and once you click on the create key pair, it will be downloaded. And I have already downloaded these ones for my key, and let me go through that. So it's there under that in user, it's there in the software, and then mobile term, and then SSH, and I have downloaded in training underscore key.pm file, and these ones I'll be used that in. So I have just placed these ones, and mobile terms, this is the open source tools, and personally I'll recommend to use it, or you can use that in git bash or any other tools. It's a free for using some of the versions, but it's suggested to use that in for like license. So just click on that start, and you will get that in Linux like command in a Windows, and cd, and here we have a key. So once our instance is up and running, then we'll log into that in these tools by SSH in 602 tutorial. So we understand that in how to generate the key, AWS security group will modify this port in after running that in instance and mobile. So let me go and do that in Terraform 601 instance demo. So for that, we need to go to that in 601 and understand that in file structure. So what we are going to do that in this command. So let me close that in others. So as usual, we have a variable, so where we have AWS default region, US East 1, share credentials file, profile, EC2 instance. So here we have additional like field EC2 instance, and type you are choosing T2 micro, and we have AMIs, and the default AMIs I have copied these ones. So this I'll show you that in from where I have copy. So again, let me go to that in AWS console and click on the service, click on that in EC2, and click on the running instance, at the moment 0. Just click on the launch, and after clicking the launch, you will get that in so many others. So just copy this value, and this is that in AWS AMI ID if you are not aware about that. So Okay, so after that we have provided as usual, like in where we are using the regions here, credential file and profile, and in instance just we are providing the mandatory field. So it says start from resource, name of the resource is AWS underscore instance, and name of the instance is a training instance for just for resource. However, the actual name will be blank at the moment because just we are providing the AMI and instance type, and in output nothing is there in that. So what I'll do, as usual, we'll perform that in Terraform init and Terraform apply. Yes, so one resource is going to be created, and we'll see that in one instance is creating in that in default uh, VPC and subnet. So if I'll go to that initiation section, one new instance created provisioning with a default VPC and availability zone. So if you'll see that in this is that in default VPC ID and subnet, and but key will be there our one, and that in okay, for this we don't have even the key also. So what we have other than that, okay, even though we cannot SSH it, so this is the first instance we created with help of a Terraform, while providing the only two parameter. The instance type is T2 micro and just providing the image ID, and we are able to run these ones. So what I'll do, I'll terminate this instance, and we'll do that in another example where we'll talk in more details. DSTROY Terraform destroy, so that resource will be destroy. And in 602 you'll see that in more details where we'll update that in security group and try to access that in web applications through that in a browser. Done. So what I'll do, I'll switch into that in 602, and in here we have in 602 we have these are the files, and let me open it. So we got that in variable as it is, like in still the AMI, and I'm using the T2 micro only, but in instance we got that in something changed. Instead of AMI in instance type, now we have a key as well. So if you remember, we have generated, I have generated training underscore key, and I have placed that key into my SSH folder, and now we are providing that in tag also. So tag will be just you are using the name, and by that now in that in name, in that in AWS console you will able to see that in a training underscore instance, and the additional attributes we are providing, like we are providing user underscore data, where we are providing the bash scripts, Where what we are doing, we are just trying to update and then install HTTPD and just adding that in Terraform with training and installing that in into that in Apache index.html, starting that in Apache and making sure the service is on. And after that we are using that in a provisioner as well with help of a file. So this provisioner will be called and it will be just place that in a scripts file located in our current folder to that in destination server under the temp folder and as a script.ssh, and remote exe command inline it will be executed with changing the permissions, making sure temp script.ssh is executable and sudo, and then we are executing the scripts. So we'll see that in what is there in the scripts. So in scripts just I have added that in additionals command, and it will say that in Terraform with Ansible testing and start it again. Provided will be remaining as it is same, and output there is nothing. So let me go and perform that these ones. So I'm in that in 602. This will be take a bit more time because we are updating that in EM update, and it will download that in all dependency. So in between what we'll do, we'll go to that in the internet and I'll see over here. Now previous one it's got terminated and new one it says started creating. But before what we'll do, we'll understand that in more from where I have referred that in instance and what are the other attributes we have for AWS instance, and same way you have to follow. For Terraform, just type that in instance and go to that in Terraform resource. So now we are there in AWS instance resource tab, which is we are using, and in this resource tab if you'll see that in a provider, we are referring that in data as a AMI, and then we are creating the resource. However, there is a additional set attribute will be there for each and every resource, and you can follow from here. So here you can see that in AMI is required, availability zone is optional, placement group is optional, and all the way if you'll come down you will be see that in all are like in optional except other than that AMI is a instance underscore type is also required, and rest of all are like in optional, so you can use that. So what we are using the user data. So user data to provide when launching the instance do not pass the zip, and after that we have provided that in tags. So it's a metadata tag for assigning that in resource, and other attributes also you can see there is a number of other attributes is there in that initiative instance, and another example is also there in this that page. So each and every resource whatever we have talked so far, you can find that in all those resources in that in Terraform documentations, and refer that in mandatory and required field, and that will be definitely help it out for learning other resources as well. Let me see, still it's creating because it's updating that in um, instance with help of a am like in em update command. Yeah, it's stated that in it's running. So what I'll do, I'll just copy that in a public IP address, and if because we are trying to install that in Apache, and hit that, still it's creating. Yeah, it's if you'll see the provisioning with a file. And okay, so this will be not run as we talk about that. So what we have to do, we need to go to that in default security group, and just we need to add the security group. Click on the edit, and at the moment there is no inbound rule for port 80 or so we'll add that in port 22, and we'll make like into anywhere, or like in to that in if you add the anywhere, anyone will be can access. So let me put that in my IP address, and then you can put that in HTTP port, and that HTTP port you can put the custom or anywhere, let it be as anywhere, and click on that save rule. Now if I perform that, the website is up and running. Terraform with AWS training. What I can do, I log in into that in server. So but for that I need a IP address, and that IP address I'll here, and then SSH minus I, and then locations. Yeah, so if I perform these ones, it will be allowed to access. Permissions denied. Okay, no such file or directory. Okay, it's most probably a spelling mistake. Here we go. So I log in into that, and yes, sudo hyphen I. So I converted into root users, and if I'll go to that uh, VR, and I'll just remove these ones. So, and I start the service. So starting the service, I'll just copy this command, and if I'll go hit now, we'll get default Apache website, because our index.html I have removed it. So exit, and demo 1 and demo 2 for 603 is 601 and 602 completed. What I'll do, I'll go and destroy it. There is some issue in that in the provisioning sections. I'll remove that provisionals where we have a issue, and then I'll upload that file. Because there is a no such before connecting the remote exe, we need to open the port 22, and we did that in bit later, so that is only one issue. So it will be destroy that. I'll not wait for that much, and that's all about in these lectures. And please let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about AWS key mobile X and demo with Terraform 701, which is VPC's creation, subnet creations, security group, internet gateway, net gateway, and instance, and then we'll able to access that in a website. So far so forth, we use that in default VPC subnet, security group, IG network gateway. Man, we created instance, but now we are going to do these ones. So let me log into that in AWS console and see what we are going to do now. So now we created EC2. We have like in come all the way down in networking sections. You'll be see that in a VPC. So in VPC is a virtual private cloud. Here we are going to create uh, two public subnet, two private subnet. So at the moment nothing is there, only one is there, which is a default one, and we are going to create our one custom. And there is a four subnet, root table, internet gateway, net gateway, and then security group, security group as well. So let's talk in more what. So this is the architectures we are going to do that, and we'll have a one VPC with a side block, something like that, and another we'll have a availability zone where we have a public subnet and private subnet, another public subnet and private subnet, and which is connected with a root table router and internet gateway, and custom route table. And after the completions of this ones, one new instance will be there like in running, and the port 80 and port 22 will be open, and that will be accessible 80 from that in Internet Explorer, and by that in port 22 from that in a MobiX. So let me go and do that in a demo. So for doing the demo, open the command prompt. I'm in there in that in 701 Terraform 701 VPC subnet SGIG network gateway and instance. So what we have to do as the first command, Terraform. Yeah, Terraform downloaded, and then Terraform apply. After once pressing the yes, then we'll go through that in code. So these are the resources going to be created, but uh, just for like in your informations, this will be chargeable because we are using the internet gateway and net gateway. So and EC2 instance as well. So if you are trying to use that in a free services, so make sure destroy immediately, and it may be charge as well. So it's up to you. You want to pay that in charge or not, and type that in yes, and let me go through that in a code. So now these are the code we have. So we got that in a instance, and in that instance again we have a user data where now we are printing that in so many other values, and the key is there and tag is there, and we have a provider as it is. Then we have a net gateway, and this will be chargeable, and internet gateway as well. So this is the resource AWS EIP. We are just attaching that in one elastic IP address for VPC resource AWS AWS underscore net underscore gateway, and allocations underscore ID, just we are allocating, and subnet underscore ID and dependents, and we are doing that in a VPC setup for net gateway, and we are providing the VPC ID and root table, whatever is there, and then name of the and then associations of that in a root table. After that we have a VPC. So in that, in AWS underscore VPC name my underscore VPC. So CIDR block we are providing, which is the IP range 10 instance tenancy default, enable DNS support yes, and name of the VPC. And this is the public subnet, where we are just dividing that in that main subnet to that in a other like in subdivisions, where we are just using that in a third bit is starting from 1 and 24. And most probably you are well aware about that in this VPC and subnet. If not, then just go through that in AWS sections, where I have go through that in overview. And then we have another public subnet and two more private subnet. And then we have a variable as usual, what we have like in past, and there is nothing to discuss more. After that, we have another resource, like in AWS security group, and name of the security group, and VPC underscore ID. We are referring that in whatever's there in that in VPC, and name of the VPC, and egress rule, and then ingress rule. We are just adding that in port 22 to everyone, and port 880 to everyone, followed by we are just adding the name of that security group. Let's see if already done. Yeah, and if I'll go to that in console, now after refreshing, we'll able to see that in our custom VPC. So our this custom VPC is created, where we have provided that this side of block we have added that name as a my VPC, and in subnet we'll get that in a 4 subnet. So let me do that. So my private one, and two more public, and then we'll get that in two more route table, one for public route table, another one for private route table, and we got that in a net gateway as well. So this is the net gateway, we got that, followed by their one elastic IP address and internet gateway as well, my internet gateway. And then we created the security group as well. So this is my web server security group, where we allow that in a inbound rule port 80 and 22 to everyone. Now if I'll go and pick that in a public IP address with help of EC2 instance. So the one EC2 instance is up and running, and just we need to copy the EC2 instance, and just click on that. You will get that in our applications is up and running with our one network, followed by the security group, and end-to-end that in demo for that. So that's all about in this lectures. Yeah, and let me know if you have any questions in QA sections, and thanks. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about creations of AWS VPC, an instance, public internet gateway, net gateway route table, and followed by that in one instance which will be accessible with help of a route 53, and configure with www.a2info.com instead of accessing the public IP address. So the previous we will follow that in same as the previous lecture. So what we have additional thing over here, instead of a public IP address, now we are going to access with help of a route 53, which is the 10 DNS and www.a2info.com. So let me go and do that in demo. For demo sections, we have a Terraform 801 VPC subnet net gateway instance and route 53. So let me go and go through that in file first. So these are the files we are referring, and the additional important things I just want to mention. Make sure you destroy that in what we talked about in previous lectures and this lecture's resource as well. And these are the two sections it will be cost, so make sure you'll take care about that. Hardly it will be cost around Indian rupees 125 or like in 150, but it's up to like in how long you are running. So like in just you'll run it and stop it, it will not chargeable, but if you keep running, definitely it will be charged more. So first of all, we have a variable. In variable sections, we have same like in regions here, credentials profile and EC2 instance type, and that in AMI, and then security group as is it like in port 22 and 80 we are just allowing. Only one thing what I have did that in I have removed that in net gateway, which is not required because again it will be charged. So we need a only public facing, and we have internet gateway, and other than that all we have the same what we discussed in that in previous lectures. And here I'll just add that in and route 53. So we'll see that in route 53, and here is the we have a route 53. So I have already created that in and map that in my domain, which is there into that in GoDaddy, and I have created first sections. So on basis of that, and I have just read that in zone, and on basis of that is zone ID, I'm just going to update that in record. And what I'm going to do now, so I'm just whatever instance we are creating, and I'm just reading the public IP address and updating that in a record, and providing that in www.a2info.com. So let me go and see that in what we have already. So click on the service and click on the route 53, or it will be there under that in networking sections. So here hostage zone I have created manually in previous, and the entry is there, and that entry, these are the set of record we got it, value ns type, and this one is map into that in my GoDaddy domain for a2info.com. So that is step I'm not going to do. What I'm going to do, I'll just add that in additional record, a record, and map the public IP address, and you'll be able to see the result. So this is not required. What I'll go into that in command prompt, and I'm in there like in 801. So Terraform init, it will be initialize that, and then apply. Okay, there is a typo. So these are the resource. Again, it's going to be created 12 now, but there is no net gateway, and you can see that in what are the resources going to be created, and it will take again a few minutes, and after that we can go and watch that in AWS console. So here you will get that in additional record, and one EC2 instance is up and running, and then you will able to test it. So let me open that in a two tab, one for watching the EC2 and another one for route 53. Yeah, new instance is started provisioning, and still it's there in the pending state. And if I'll go to that in here, because once the instance is up, then it will be start that activity. Yeah, it's running. Now the provisioned sections will be started. Let me see that in console. Yeah, still it's creating instance only, and now it's started creating that in AWS route 53 record, and again it will be take some time. So here we go. Now we got this is that in additional entry, and whatever we have a public IP address of that in instance, And here we'll see that in 388 157 122, and that instance got map. And if I'll copy this one URL and hit into that in browser, I'll be able to see that in output, which is we have mentioned that in root 53. And I think this is all about for this lecture's last thing we have to do. Don't forget it for destroy the resource, and it will be destroy again after prompting that in questions, like in yes, typing the yes. So I'll be considered, you will be typed that in a yes, and your resource will be destroyed. So let me know if you have any questions in this part, and other than that I'll just make a one like in point again. This will be cost, so make sure while doing that in you are destroying that in resource as soon as possible, or like in or whenever it's like in your demo is completed and after your understanding. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform modules, and we'll take that in one example, which is virtual private cloud. So all in all, what we are going to do, we are going to create this VPC with a CIDR block 10.0.0.0.4/16 for one VPC, only simple VPC, and there is no charge for this. So these are the Terraform resources we are going to use for AWS creating the VPC, and we'll see in details. So other than that, like in this lecture, we are going to talk along with the Terraform simple VPC creations by the resource, and the Terraform VPC creations with a module. The module code will be there in that in local, and the pros and cons of the modules. So Terraform modules for like in VPC, and that VPC we are going to create in a simple, and and then we are going to do that in a Terraform, same like in VPC will be converted into that in a module, and that module will be referenced with a local file system, like under the modules folder in the VPC. and and we'll be having in this lecture there is a two demo for one for the Terraform 901, which is simple VPC creations, and we'll understand it, and then Terraform 902, which is VPC creations by the module, and then we'll see that in difference. So all in all, there is no charge for like in this demo, especially AWS will be on no charge, because we are not going to create a resource which will be cost more, but it's better to destroy that in immediately once you learn it. So let me go and do that in demo. So I'm in that in Terraform 901 modules, and in these ones we'll have a theory, like in as of now in theory, but it will be add more. So in this lecture, I'm going to cover 901 and 902, and then 903 will cover that in next lecture. So let me go and have a look into that in 901. So 901 one we have altogether, these are the files. So we have a provider as usual what we use that in the past, and there is no change in that. We are just using the regions here credentials file and the profile, and after that in we have a variable which is what we discussed that in past. Just there is a three variable: regions and share credentials file and profile, and then we are just creating just one simple VPC with nothing in that as of now. So but the CIDR block we are using 10.0.0.0/16, and the instance tenancy default, enable DNS support true, enable DNS host name true, enable classic click false, and and tag name you are using that in demo VPC. So let me go and have this example. So I'm in here and I need a directory structures where we have our example. So I copied and cd and paste, and we'll see now these are the file we have. So first command we have to perform uh, terraform init. Yeah, initialization's done, and then we can directly perform the apply for saving the time, or you can do the Terraform plan as well. So, but before typing yes, I'll see that in only one resource is going to be created or not. So on before that, and I'm in that in AWS console, and here I can see that in as of now only one is there into the North Virginia, which is US East one, and same regions we are going to create it. So let me type the yes. So what will be happen? One resource will be created like in as a VPC, you know, with a name demo VPC. Yeah, so that resource created, and if I'll go and refresh over here, then you are able to see that in a demo VPC. And this is just like simple example with there is no cost, and we created, and so now not required. So last command we can destroy it. And same thing I'm going to do that in Terraform module in 902. Yeah, so this example is done, and now we'll do the Terraform 902, and inside the 902 we have these are the files, and let me refresh it and clean it, so nothing is there at the moment. So in 902 what we need to do that in same Terraform init. But now if you'll see that in what is happening, it's initializing the module, AWS VPCIN module, and that module is downloaded. So before going ahead, let me go and see the what are there inside. So all those file is there as usual, but now there is no resource. So in provider, as usual, what we discussed earlier, in here we got that in some different. So what we got the difference? We got that in now we started with a module. So once you are going to write the module, first thing first you have to use the keyword as a module, and then name of the module whatever you want as a relevant, and then same thing whatever you have mentioned that in the folder structure. So I'm using the modules under the VPC, and inside that in these are the variables I have defined it. So one thing you have to remember, whatever we have defined that in a module. So in module, actual code is there cider underscore block instance underscore tenancy enable underscore DNS support enable underscore DNS or host name and so on and so forth. I just prefix that in VPC underscore, and here also in local variable we have defined that in so here you can see that in all variable I have defined the VPC cider block VPC instance tenancy and so on and so forth all, and then I'm using that in reference. Let me go and have a look into that in module folder. So inside that in modules we have a VPC, and these are the three files we have into that in a VPC. First one is a variable, so just a variable declarations, nothing is there, just blank. After that we have a output where we are just printing that in BPC ID, and this BPC output we will refer that in here we are referring that in, if you'll see that in module AWS VPC and then BPC underscore ID. So BPC ID is nothing but this is that in a reference we are referring, and this is that in exact resource what we use it, but here we are using the variable, but actual value is there for like in which is resource for cider underscore block, but in a module we are using that in this variable because we have to assign the value in this variable and then only it will be referenced inside that in module. So let me go and clarify that in Terraform module, the all your attributes, whatever is there, you have to mention in left side, and right side is a variable name, and this variable name you have to assign that in reverse way into that in while writing the module. So same variable, let's say I'll copy this one, and if I'll come over here, then uh, it's indicating that in a first, because we have to assign that value in this variable, then it will be reference to that in inside that in a module, and then actual resource will be created. So as long as you will pass that in a different variables, and that will be reference into that in your Terraform module. So let me go and do that in demo for this. So initialization's done, and one more thing you can see that in once initialization's done, that in one folder will be created Terraform. Inside that in plugins in past we discussed, now the modules folder also created, and then inside that in a module whatever we wrote that in key value modules and directory and BPC, it's downloaded. So meaning it's getting the reference from that module, and now let me go and do that in apply. Yeah, so one resource is going to be created, but with help of a module, not by that in and direct. Yeah, so module created and we got it. So if I'll go over here and do the refresh, so we got that in BPC, but a name tag is not there. It's not updated, but additional VPC is created. So we can see that in why that in tags not updated, and here I'll we go to the variable sections and find, and here we have a capital N is needed, and let me perform one more time what is happening. Yeah, it's going to be changed, and now we'll be get that in it's changing from uh, a small to that like in capital name, and most probably we'll get that in that name into that in reflecting into the here. Yeah, demo VPC is updated, and we got it, and let me go and destroy it, last command. So make sure once you learn it, compare like perform the Terraform command, and once this is done, then go and destroy that in immediately. So I'll be make sure I'll either in that in descriptions or like in lectures I'll mention that in what are the resource going to be charged. So let's say like in past we talk about that in minus, like in hyphen, which is meaning that that resource is going to be destroy. So after that we'll talk about that in pros and cons also in these ones. So what is the advantage of these ones? Because we are writing that in one place, and we are reusing the same modules. If that in let's say Terraform versions got changed and some syntax is changed, we can just create that in one label, and that label or tag you can use that in that tag for that, and it makes your master branch is running like into that in your productions one, and you can do that in future development with that branch as well. So what we talk about that in, just let me recap, we talk about that in creating the Terraform BPC in the simple way. Same we converted with like in Terraform by the modules, but modules were there into that in local directory, which is not right way. So in next lecture we are going to talk about how to use that in repository for storing that in module code and their utilizations, and for same VPC, and that's sort of all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about Terraform BPC AWS resource creations with help of modules, but module code will refer from the Bitbucket instead of a local directory. So similarly, this code will be remaining same as usual. Only the things is going to be changed, which is like in source. So in earlier we talk about that in source we are there into that in local folder, but now we have into that in a Bitbucket. So the advantage of these ones while using that in Bitbucket, because there is your code will be there in the source repository, followed by that in n number of other team members or like in project that will be used that in same module, which is dry concept, and with help of that they will be implemented. So same like in BPC we are going to create, but the source is now different, and the different like in source we can use that in first one we talk about that in what in local path, and you can use that in Terraform registry, GitHub, Bitbucket, and HTTP URL S3 bucket, and GCS bucket as well. So we talk about that in local path. I'm going to talk now in this lecture is in Bitbucket, and rest of that you can try it. And here is like in a few example you can see that in so the VPC resource creations I refer from that in here, and you can see that in other Terraform like in registry where you'll find that in a number of like modules, and here we have that in our like in VPC code, which ones I'm going to download it. So like at the time of initializations you'll be see that in this code is downloading from here, and same thing same like in VPC module code is there. The only things what I have did that in place into that in stripped local path into the Bitbucket, and in AWS console also nothing is there, and let me go and change the directory and run it. So these are the files we have, and let me go and have a look. So what we have in this VPC, we are using the Git, and this is the path where we have, and the things you have to remember, because inside that in a repository we have a folder VPC. So double forward slash you have to use that in VPC, and while using that in Git way, like in HTTP URL, you have to use that in Git clone and then URL. So this will work for GitHub as well, and for other you can refer that in from Terraform website. So let me go and copy the path and go to the command prompt. Let's see the CLS. All right. So these are the files we have. Terraform init, which is first command, and now if you'll see that it's downloading from that in a Bitbucket. So what you need, we need a internet connectivity for sure, because and that Git repository that in a public, so you'll be able to access it because I have created the public one, and same code you can download from this URL as well, and there you no need to do. Moreover, I'll attach that in all example into that in resource sections. You can download and run it as it is. So Terraform init is done. Terraform apply. Yeah, one resource is going to be created with help of a module. If you see that in its printing is module, and the module AWS VPC and demo VPC is going to be created. So now here for other project, let's say the same thing they want to use, just they will change that inside a block and so forth, and they will able to access it. So if I'll go here now inside that in Terraform, we got that in a module, and that module we downloaded from that in a AWS VPC, and inside that in whatever's there into our code in repository. And let me go and have a look into that in AWS console. So in AWS console also a new VPC is created, which is this ones, and same mistake is there into that in implementation side. So if I'll go and change that in VPC in the variable section, so here we have to put that in a name as a capital. So let me repeat it. So if I perform the Terraform apply again, so while doing the Terraform apply, you know, the tag will be got changed, and here you will be get that in that only tag is going to be changed. Similarly, what we have did that in like in previous lecture. Yeah, so if you'll see that in uh, it's going to be tag change, what is going to be added and what is going to be removed. So in the single resource, we got that in all three symbols. So one attributes is going to be added, another one is going to destroy, and the change is going to be happening to that in tag. Now if I'll refresh it, and we'll get that yeah, updated. I'll be go and destroy it last command. So this will be clean that, and what I'll suggest, go to the Terraform repository and Terraform registry and see that in other modules and try to do that in as much as you can do. And one more thing, what I'll add it, try that in as much as you can from that in Terraform registry for IAM component. So in IAM component, you'll be see that in all are free, and you'll be understand the versioning, other example as well. And so here you will get that in. So if you can sign it and you can post that in your own module as well. um, Look like that's all about in these lectures, and thanks. Just try that in other options if you want. Most probably your organization is not using the bit, so you can use that in other options as well, which will be like in help it out. So what we in recap, what we understand, what we learn, like in local paths, where our modules code will be there, and that in case of a repository in Bitbucket. So both we saw that in end-to-end. In all for modules we cover that in three lecture, like in demo 901 for creating simple VPC, 902 for creating the VPC with help of a module, which is module is there into local path, and 903 which is like we place that in our like in module code into that in Bitbucket, and then we able to do that in same operations. So that's all about in these lectures, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions in QA sections, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to create a S3 bucket with help of a Terraform. So just a simple example, in S3, AWS 3 bucket, we are going to create with like in the shorts AWS underscore S3 underscore bucket, and name of the bucket we are going to use that in a my bucket for just this resource, and bucket and actual bucket name will be there my underscore tf hyphen s3 hyphen bucket hyphen 2020, and ACL we are going to use that in as a private, and tag name my like in this one's environment POC. The things you have to remember, the bucket name must be uniquely, so due to that I have just used that in this that much of complex, because this is required to unique, and most probably you are aware about that. If not, then watch that in AWS sections for like in storage. And in For these ones, we have a demo like in Terraform 1001 S3 bucket, and again there is no charge for this AWS resource. As soon as we'll create and delete that then bucket in at least for 1 year. Like for more details, you can see that in for AWS free tier, and if you're using for organizations, then there's no problem at all. So but make sure you are creating and deleting that in after that in on demo. And if you're using officially AWS account for like in company purpose, then there is no problem at all. So let me go and see that in what are the files we have for creating the simple bucket. So for creating the simple AWS bucket, just provided is remaining same as usual what we have into that in previous, and variables name is also remaining same for regions, here credentials file and profile. But we in the resource sections we have like in AWS underscore S3 underscore bucket, name of the bucket SEL tag name, and then similarly for output, just we are printing that in AWS bucket ID. So let me go and see that in I mean that in Terraform 1001 S3 bucket, and first command first we have to perform Terraform init, and then Terraform apply. You can perform, check that in a plan and validate and format command as well. But I want to make sure this video is like in short duration, so I'm just performing that in a quick command. So one resource is going to be added with a like in a S3 bucket, and that bucket is going to be created soon. So let me go and see that in AWS console. So I mean that in AWS console where we have to see that in S3, and yeah, my underscore TFS3 bucket 2020 is created just now, and most probably this command is also got success. So the what we choose that in ACL as a private, and that inside that in bucket, that in object it may be that in a public as well. So let me go and destroy it. Yeah, the bucket got destroyed, and here we also we cannot see that now. Yeah, so nothing is there in that in this bucket. So same uh, anything to discuss? No. So that's all about in these lectures for creating the simple S3 bucket, because this bucket is intended to be for especially Terraform remote estate, which is we are going to talk about that in the upcoming lectures. So just for like an example, I did that, and now we are going to talk about that in a, how to store the Terraform estate file in a local and a remote. So now also if you'll see that in one terraform.tf estate file creating, as long as if will perform the again and again command, so it will take that in a backup as well. So this part we'll talk into that in upcoming lectures, and that's all about in these lectures, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform estate file, like local and remote estate file. So our main objective of that in discussing more details is what is the Terraform estate file in local, and like in and in remote. So let's talk about that in one by one. So Terraform local estate file meaning you where you have a Terraform file, you will get that in once you'll perform perform the Terraform apply and destroy the one like in especially apply, you'll get that in terraform.tf state file created, or you can customize it while passing the parameter. So and after that in you can store that in Terraform, but these ones will have some disadvantage. What is the disadvantage? If that in you have a team and multiple people are working on that in same like executions, then there is a possibility to like one person is trying to create, another one is doing that in destroy, and there is such a like in a common state file, so there is a possibility to mismatch here and there. So this is not a recommended way if the like in your team is working in more than one person for Terraform executions. You know so second options we have is store that in your Terraform file into that in remote state, and a number of the persons will perform that in the command, and that will be stored into that in a like in repository, and where we have a possibility to do that in a locking as well. So locking part I'll be not do that in I'll just give you that in assignment, and it's your activity. Just you have to create one small DynamoDB and provide that in name of the key, and that will work. A remote state, and for this, we are going to cover that in, two example, 1101 and 1102. And for doing this example, again, there is no charge until unless your account is like in free tier. And after that also, there is no charge until unless you place that in any object, but I'll suggest to use that in only 1 year until unless you have a free tier, and keep watching on that in a charge part in the AWS like in resource sections. Let me go and do that in example one by one. What is that? So first I'm going to create that in Terraform bucket file, because that needed while using that in remote state. And before going ahead that in remote state, these are the other remote state also supported by that in Terraform standard. You can go and refer from this URL. So one of that in example we are going to use like in S3 bucket with help of this syntax, but you can use that in Artifactory console and so and so forth as well. So let me go and do that in demo for that. So for this demo we have you know um, 1101 and 1102. So 1101 will perform first. Here we are just creating that in S3 bucket, and this bucket will be used into that in another one. So this name will be very much indeed. So this name we are going to refer that in another example. And similarly, so what we have, let me copy the path and go to that in a command prompt cd and change the directory, and first command as usual, Terraform init. It will be download that in a plugins for doing that in Terraform provider. This is bridge between that in Terraform in AWS. So if you'll not create that in bucket first, and if you'll try to do that in remote provisioning, that will be not possible. So while doing this one, so what you have to think about that in name whatever you are going to use that in this example, same name you have to use that in like in remote state file, which will be talking to that in 1102 lecture. Not lecture in this lecture itself, but in that demo. So now this um, you know a bucket is created, and same bucket we are going to use that in 1102. So I'll not destroy this once. I'll open that in another command prompt, and I'll go into that in Windows and copy that in 1102. And here if you'll see that in the only configurations we have, same thing we are using that in same name whatever it was there into that in earlier. So bucket created with this name and same bucket we are going to use it now. So what I want to show you another thing in console. At the moment, if you'll refresh, you'll get that in only one bucket, which we are going to use for like in storing the state file. So here there is a no file at the moment, but once you'll perform that in our Terraform command, one file will be created with a Terraform state, which is remote file. And let me go and here and open that in a new Windows. And first command, first Terraform init. Yeah, so here if you'll see that in there is such a Terraform file, but in another one if you'll see that in local Terraform state file has been created, because from these ones we are not maintaining the state, and because this is that in a local state what we talk about. So the intentions was there for 1101 for talking about that in local state, and this bucket is also indeed before performing that in 1102 example, but now you'll not get that in a local Terraform state file. And if I'll go here, initializations done, and then if I'll do that in apply, one terraform.tf state file will be created into that in a bit bucket, because we have provided that in locations and key as well. So let me press that in yes, and once this resource is created, I'll go into that part of code where we have mentions what are the file is going to be created and which bucket. So okay, so it's creating in between. Let's have a look on these are the files. So this is that in S3 bucket I'm creating just storing that in a state of these ones. Provided is as usual. Output is like in as usual. Variable is as bucket like in backend got.tf got added extra. We are using that in backend as a S3 and name of the backend, and this is the key file we are using. So this key file terraform.tf state will be created now into that in our here. So if I'll do that in refresh, a state terraform.tf state file created, and there's such a state file into that in especially 1102, because now we are pointing that in a state file into that in a remote locations. So now if there is a multiple people will also perform that in this command, so what will be happen, the at a time one Terraform state file will be created and versioning will be there, then it will be stored into that in this S3 bucket. Otherwise it will be override that in a latest one. So it's suggested to enable the versioning of that like in S3 object as well. So multiple terraform.tf state file will be created and stored into that in S3 bucket. But there is a big disadvantage also if that file is a bigger size, so you'll be get that in size is increasing like in anything in S3 bucket. So make sure you are watching that part as well once you are enabling the versioning. And let me go and have a look on that. Now we got these ones. So if I'll perform that in here Terraform show command, so it will be go and fetch from that in like in our S3 bucket where we have a state file, and other users also can go and perform this command. So once you'll implement that in locking, so other users cannot apply that in or destroy that in at the same time, because the resource will be locked. Similarly, you can achieve that in locking concept into that in a local. and by default it will be there locking yes. So in like in same directory, same PC, if you have a provisions to log into that and perform that in two commands. One of that it will say that in this resource is a locking state, or like in lock dot one log file will be also created locally. So that's all about in this lectures. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in Q&A sections, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about Terraform import, which is reverse engineering, and how to generate a start.tf file from that in AWS resource, existing resource. So let's go and do that in one by one. So just to understand that in a high level, what we are going to do, we will perform just a Terraform import command, and firstly we'll create that in S3 bucket manually while logging into that in AWS console, and then we'll configure that in provider S3 bucket and variable. So by this provider we'll get the connectivity from that in AWS to our Terraform, and s3-bucket.tf file will be have just a blank file, and we'll see and for specific regions. And once we'll perform the Terraform import command, the existing resource S3 bucket will be downloaded into that in Terraform state TF state file, and then we can see that in that state file into that in and we can delete that in existing one, or we can choose that in other regions and create that in again that same resource what we have. So let's do that in demo. So for before going to the demo, you have to refer that 1201 series for this import statement. And what we have to do in high level, create a S3 bucket manually, and name of the bucket you can put that in anything. I'm going to choose this ones in US East 1 regions, and you have to download these files. I'll be attaching to that in download section, and then you have to just cd into that in Terraform 1201 folder, and just perform Terraform init, Terraform import sw, and Terraform import command, and Terraform show, and then copy the resource into that new bucket file and delete the AWS resource and Terraform plan and apply. So let me go and do that in one by one. So these are the files I have created, and let me open, and all these files I'll be attached into that in Terraform 1201. So you'll see that in let me close that in previous ones because we have only three and look like more. So these are the variables we talk a lot in almost every lectures, and you have to just configure. Make sure your AWS is configured with help of a credentials, or like in other way what we talk about that. So I'm using that in same way. We US East 1, and the credentials is configured into that in credentials file, and profile is configured for default, and then there is a provider which is calling that in credentials file, and the profile and AWS regions. And here we have S3 bucket where we don't have just the resource and name of resource and blank. So what happened if we'll remove this one and try to create, let me okay, let it be go for success scenario, then we'll talk about that in failure. So just create that in resource, and what you have to do, again you have to open the command prompt and cd into that in Terraform 1201, where only three files is there what we talk about that. And first command, first you have to perform Terraform init, and the providers will be downloaded. Okay, so the provider is downloading. In before doing that, in what we need to do, login into that in AWS console. So I'm in that in AWS console. Click on the service, click on the S3 or in under the storage, and then create the one bucket. and choose the regions what we talk about, and nothing is required, just create it. So for this resource there is no charge, just because just we are creating the bucket, there is no file such. So the bucket name created with a bucket hyphen import hyphen 2020 hyphen by hyphen kumar, and if you'll see the timestamp now. And what we have to do next, okay, AWS S3 and Terraform. So you'll be see something like that, and you have to like remember the resource is going to be supported import command only. You can import it. So this resource we can import with help of bucket name. Other resource you can import by that in ID. So you have to just see that in command for respective resource. So what is next? We have to go to that in our resource created and initialize, and then you have to perform this command terraform import and that AWS S3 bucket dot bucket. So this bucket we have created as a resource under that in here. So like in AWS underscore S3 underscore bucket, and this is the bucket what we have created. And this is the part I'm referring from this blank file. And then what we are saying, the bucket hyphen import hyphen 2020 hyphen by hyphen kumar, I have referred from what we have created into AWS console. So once you perform this command, what happen, one state file will be created, terraform state file will be created, and it will be imported that in your existing resource whatever's there into okay, we have created into AWS console. So it says started. Yep. So import successfully, and if I'll go to that in directory structures now, this is the terraform.tf state file created, and if you'll see that in 2KB, and what how to see, like, and just perform the terraform so command, and then you will be see that in that resource whatever we have created the same resource like in we got that from you know our like in a state file. So just copy these contents, and some of the contents most probably you can need to remove it. You can think about that, but just copy it. And here we have S3 bucket. What I'll do, I'll be just paste over here and comment that in a previous one and save it. And next step, what I'll be go and delete it that resource what we have created here. So now you got the Terraform as a code. We can perform that in this AWS account, or like in a other AWS account, or like we need to just do that in a small changes, and then you can like automate it. So now we got the resource. If I'll do that in Terraform plan, then we'll able to see that in okay, this field cannot be set. So it's saying that in what are the fields we cannot set, bucket regional domain name and bucket domain name and ID. So these ones it's a generated by default, bucket domain name, regional domain and ID, and then we have to comment these ones because all these will be generate on the fly. So bucket domain name, bucket regional and ID and versioning enable. So if I'll see that in a plan now, yeah, it's going to be create one resource. If I'll do that in apply, so one new resource will be added, and if you'll see the ID, bucket domain name and regions is going to be generated at the time of a creations. So the point you have to remember, I'll also discuss that in theoretical in that in next slide. here we go. So our bucket created and it's got success. If I'll come here and do the refresh, that buckets will be created by that in Terraform now. Yep, same bucket created now in US East region. So what we learn in here, we created that in bucket manually, S3 bucket manually, and then first here in first for we have like in provider S3 bucket blank and variables Terraform files, and then we perform the Terraform init Terraform import command. What happened? Whatever's existing resource we are there in a like in configure in S3 bucket, that resource converted into Terraform state file, and on basis of that state file we created that in S3 bucket. We removed that in some of the attribute which was supposed to be created on that dynamic, and then we deleted that in that manual created S3 bucket, and then we'll perform the plan and apply, and then again this resource created AWS. So all in all we go through that in all this, and came to know like AWS resource created while generating the first in reverse engineering. We understand that in attributes and their value, and then again we repeat it while doing that in automations. So now the key points for remember, like in S3 bucket name must be unique, import resources in the state file, need some changes if required to create some of the resource added, like in especially few attributes, like in state ID, and some of that in it attributes it will be generated on the time of creations, and reverse engineering only needed in case of your state file deleted, or if you want to understand that in what are the attributes is there additionally which is generated at the time of optionals or mandatory one. So then in that case you'll understand it in some time. If you don't know, and there is a like look like in there is a complexity, in that case you can apply that in reverse engineering, but you have to make sure only resource AWS resource will be imported with support in the Terraform. So must see in that in supporting or not, so that you can see from that in a Terraform this document resource sections, and just come all the way down, you will see that in import is supporting or not, or how it's working by that in ID, or it's working by that in name. So whatever's AWS resource is there, you can try it. Let me go through that in up and see for other resource. Let's say we have some other famous resource. We can say that in S3 bucket, and okay. Only it's coming as three bucket. Okay, share services, transfer, SSN. Just see that in SSN supporting or not. So in data source, SSN applications, you have to just come in resource sections, not in data sections. So resource sections also for SSN, SNS also supporting, and you can see that in Terraform import, AWS SNS platform applications, name of that, and in here we have to pass that in ARN. So all in all you have to come into that in AWS Terraform, understand that in Terraform import, and then you have to apply it, and you need to create the provider for sure, and that provider if variable file, and that resource in that like in a just a blank resource where what you are going to use, and name of that in resource, and then such kinds of a resource will be generated. We are just you have to identify that in what resource will be not generated at the runtime, and just come and comment it, and I will be see that in same resource into the GUI. So let me go and in AWS console, and last step as a cleanup, you can clean up from the GUI, or we can do that in from here, destroy, because our main target for like in learn, create and destroy that in immediately, so while doing these ones we'll have neat and clean, and most probably by mistake also there is no charge for that. So anyhow for this demo there is no charge, and this resource is going to be destroyed. done, and we can cross verify that in from AWS console as well. So it's a like in it was there in blank bucket. There is one restrictions where we have if some any data is there, most probably it will not imported. Only AWS resource syntax will be repeated, and you can do that in automations. So that's all about in these lectures, and let me know if you have any concerns in the QA section. So I'll be more than happy to answer as soon as possible. And thanks for watching. And lastly, don't for please provide your feedback, which is more important for me. I know I'm not using any background music. I'm not using that in any commercial software where make that in image here and there and kind of a effect and all, but I'll try to stick on that in context, and I'll provide that in I'll be try my level best to provide that in that conscience. So please share this course with your colleague if you like it, and don't forget to share your feedback. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to create, create a multiple environment with associated vars and state file, and multiple region with associated vars and state file with the same code while following that. Don't repeat your concept, and such example will be really help it out for real-time project implementations. And here is that in the way we what we are going to do. So let's we have a star.tf file and multiple tf file irrespective of environment, and that will be there definitely in that in any one of the repository. But however, we are using into local, and where the Terraform will be installed. So different n number of users will be there. I administrator, release manager, or build tools, or like in other tools, and where we can perform that in this command while using that in additional attribute in that in Terraform apply and destroy. Then you will be create that in a different VPC respective to the environment. So let's go and do that in a demo. So for demo, you have to download that in a Terraform 13.130 Terraform multi-file environment, and download into local folder and CD into that in respective directory, and perform Terraform init, which will be download that in a plugins for configurations between Terraform AWS and then Terraform apply. And so this will be performed that in with help of a variable.xml file, tf file, whatever's value will be there. However, now we are using that in additional attributes hyphen state, where we are defining that in dev.tf state associated to that in dev.tf var files, which is considered as a development. Similarly for a QA, and while destroying, we are just destroying that in resource whatever is created by that in just Terraform apply and Terraform destroy, where we use that in development, and what we use that for dev tf bar and respective QA as well. So let me go and have a look on that in Terraform code structures and details. So these are the files we have, and in variable.x like in tf these variables for regions, this variable for credentials file profile, and now we have a global variable which is the environment, where we are just providing that in variable.xml default hyphen by Terraform purpose project hyphen 001 and cider block 10.0.0.0.0 however, in VPC now we are passing that in as a variable, and that in environment also we are passing variable as an environment, but we are concatenating that underscore VPC, then environment and the purpose. However, output will be remaining same, provider will be remaining same as usual, like in what we discussed in previous one. However, However, now we have a dev.tf where that in a variable value we are assigning now AWS underscore regions where US underscore hyphen east hyphen one share credentials file profile we are providing as a default. You can change that in profile as a development, and here we are providing that in environment dev, and that inside our block got changed 10.1.0.0/16. And for QA also we got that in a regions, we got that in environment QA for project hyphen 001, and the CIDR block also got changed 10.2.0.04/16. So let's go and do it. So what we have, these are the command we have. First command, what as usual we have to perform Terraform init. So it will be download that in you know plugins for AWS provider, and plugins download done. And then next command we have to just perform the apply. So all in all it will be create a 3D shorts in AWS console. So let me log in into that in AWS console and see that what we have. So I'm in that in AWS console. If you want to like navigate, click on the service, come all the way down, and you'll be see that then VPC resource under networking and content delivery. Just click on the VPC, and here we will be see that in we are in the North Virginia. So at the moment only one is there because it's waiting for our prompt 2 years in the command prompt. So let me go and approve it. So one resource will be created with a CIDR block 10.0.0.0/16 and the default by Terraform. And yeah, it's created, and we can see that in from GUI also. Let me refresh. So this is the resource we created where CIDR block is this, and the name whatever we mentioned that in default by Terraform. So first step done. Second one, what we are going to do. So before that, let me go and see that in directory. So now we got that in Terraform TF state file, which is default one, and but now we are going to provide that in a custom one where we'll mention that in our one state file, which is dev.tf state, and we are providing the development variables as well. Yeah, so secondary shorts is also going to be create, but the environment development and name will be there dev hyphen vp underscore vpc. The project will be remaining same. And if I'll go to the console, I can okay. So but before, yeah, dev vpc created, but CIDR block got changed, their name got changed, and few tags also got changed. If you click on the tag section, so you'll be see that in a difference. Environment dev name dev vpc for default one, we got that in default. And similarly if you'll perform for a QA, we'll be see that in for QA as well. QA resource also got created, and if I'll go here, I can see that in the QA resource created. Only limitations will be found because by default per VPC you can create maximum 6 VCN, and almost 4 is already done. So regional specific we can create it, and what we can do that in for creating the regional specific variable, and just we have to come here and let's say we are in the QA, and I change that in the US hyphen is 2, and we'll pass that in a QA related resource, but just we'll change that in TFS state file QA 2, and once you perform this command, and it will be go and destroy that in yeah, it will be create a new resource into that in a different region. Yep. So this is done. Now if I'll go and refresh here, it will be remaining same because we are in there in US East 1. So for changing that in a US East 2, we have to go, which is Ohio. And if I'll click on that in go to the VPC sections again, we'll see that in one resource will be exist here, which is a QA1, and we are in that in different region. So let me go and destroy this resource first. So what I'll do, I'll let it be as it is and start destroying. Then I'll go and change that in a qa.tf file, like in US list 1, and we'll follow that in destroy for like in a general one. So what we learn in this one, so our code will be remaining same, but on basis of that in dynamic parameter we'll destroy that, you create the resource for different project or different environment, and these are that in exact real-time example. And generally we used to do that in once we'll do that in for development different environment, productions, QA, UAT, pre-productions kind of environment, or like in blue-green technology where this concept will be implemented, because the big limitations of a Terraform is a declarative language, and you have to repeat that in a code. You should not implement such kinds of like implementations, and otherwise you have to create for one development environment like in folder where you have to provide that in uh, where yeah, I'm just trying to clean that in all resource. So for develop, QA is done. Now I'm doing for the development, and then I'll destroy for that in a general one. And so what are the things we need to, yeah, so I was talking about that in otherwise you have to create a different folder and copy paste all the code from here and there, and which is not good. So I'm in almost development destroy is also done, and I'll do that in another destroy which is for default one, and for default nothing, no parameter is required, and just do that in destroy which will be destroy that in a default. I like in pick that in a small example, otherwise it will take a long time. Whereas, but here only one conscience is there. You have to maintain that in a state file and different. So let me go and cross check that in a GUI all resources deleted or not. In Ohio, yes, and if I'll go to that in US East, which is North Virginia. So here also I'll be expect like in a 0, only one VPC which is default one. Yeah, so this is default one, and Yeah, so we did that in all only for one things what I did that in I just changed that in one of that in QA and for different regions and created that in regional as well. So the advantage of it this way for like in our code is remaining same and just we are changing that in a state file and different variable file and implementing that. So that's all about in these lectures and please provide your feedback if you like this course and share with your colleague teams and thanks for watching.
Hello and welcome. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about how to use that in account, features, which is for Terraform on basis of that count, on the 10 resource. Because I'm going to, add that in additional features of a new versions of a Terraform 0.1 3.0, and that is a count for each and different one is the very important role is playing, especially in case of a module. So that will be really help it out for you, and I don't want to miss that lecture. So let me go and add that in account, which is a long pending item from my end. So this is on the source level, and I'll add that in new features in module level. So in resource level, any AWS resource, if you'll add that in account, attribute, then you'll be able to create a kind of a similar resource, and and kind of a similar resource for the respective environment. Let me say, like, if you put the count equal to 2, it will be create a, two buckets with just adding that in a count index is equal to 1 and count index like in a 0 1 for these ones, and you can repeat it like in number of resource on basis of name. You can even put that in some other variable as well. So let me go. So this is the resource we are going to create, AWS S3 bucket, and count, this is just a resource name, and I have just added that in account. And if you'll see that in actual resource, like in AWS provider, for Terraform, like in bucket ACL tag name and something, this is the mandatory one, and I just added that in a one count, which is that in additional feature of it, Terraform. So on now what I'm passing the variable. If you have not go through that in, I'll be suggest to go through that in understand that in variable and S3 bucket previous lecture as well. And now in bucket again the bucket name, and this is the count dot index, which is 0 1 2. Start with an again name variable and env variable. So these are the all variables I have declared that in here in that in S3 section. We are like in variable S3 bucket count, which where we are providing 1. If we provide 2, it will be repeat that name, bucket name, SCL private name of the like in tag name is equal to S3 bucket, and the development environment, and provider as it is it, there is no change. So let me go and do that in. So here we code command, and first command is terraform hyphen v version, because I'm doing this demo in 0.12.14, what we have discussed that in past, because I have to add that in 0.13.0, and I'll do that in upcoming lectures as I stated. So the first command is init. It's taking bit time due to the internet connectivity, like in slowness, but that's fine. It's done. Then you can perform plan for checking that in how many resources is going to be created. So it's going to be created 1. Now the magic will be a start once you will increase the number, let's say 2, and if you perform that in plan, it will be say that in 2. If I'll say that in 20, it will be added that in 20 resource, but in the same similar resource, and just adding that in S3 bucket 1 2 3 4 5 something up to 20. So here if you'll see that in starting from 0 until 19, so 19 similar resource is going to be created by these configurations. So what we have did that in the same configuration, same resource, but only we are increasing the count with help of a count. So if you want to create a similar resource for same purpose, then you can use that in a count variable, and you can increase and decrease it on basis of that it will be created. So let me go and do that in a creation of a 2 instead of a 20, because I don't want to create for demo purpose more than that, which will be charged for you. APPLY apply, and it will be going to be created 2 bucket with help of the count. And if I'll go to that in AWS console, I mean that in AWS console, here we have, just refresh it. Yeah, so my TF bucket count testing 0 and 1 it's created just now, and if you'll see it's a success. So if I'll add that in one more additionals in the variable, or like let's say I'll remove that in 1, I'll just reduce that in count 2 to 1. It's going to be destroy one resource. Yeah, so only one is there at the moment. If I'll refresh here, I'll get that in one of them is destroy. Similarly, you can add that in one more, let's say like in 3. So total count will be 3, so 1 plus 2. 1 is already there, and it will be create additionals 2. So 2 is going to be added, 0 change and 0 destroy. All right, so let me come and see over here. Now we'll be see that in 3, 0 1 2 3 2, and last command will perform the destroy. All right, so I'll be in AWS console again, and all resources destroy. And for me, it's in all these not required, so I'll be go and clean up again. And that's all about for this lecture. And please provide that in your feedback, in that in Azure rating, and share with your friend and family for like if anyone is interested to buy this course. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about how to use that in for each Terraform features, which is for resource level, And the intention of this lecture is to I'm going to add that in new features of a Terraform 0.13.0, which will be have the supporting the 4 underscore each at module level, and that features I don't want to wait to introduce anymore. And this is that in like lecture I was just waited for a long time because due to the time constraints. So let me go and have a look on to that, like in for how to use that in for underscore each for like in creating that in kind of a similar resource for like in AWS, and so without any delay, let's go through that in a code walkthrough. So the resource AWS S3 bucket, I'm going to use the name of that in resource, and this is that in additional keyword syntax for Terraform features, where with help of that you can create that in a number of resource, and you can use that in a value like in each dot key and each dot value, which is like in just a hash map, if you know, like in which will have a key and value. So for this what we need 4 underscore each, and then you have to define that in one map variable. So map meaning the key and the value. In value also it will be have that in another key and value again. So that's all depend on, but this is that in fixed resource, and you can see that in from here I have referred that from and this is that in AWS creations for like in private packet with the tags, and and just I added that in this one. So let go and understand that in, so one variable I have defined the S3 underscore bucket ACL and name, and then env. So that will be there in that in a variable sections, and if you'll see that in S3 bucket, which ones I have that in a, this is that in a key, and this is considered as the value, but inside the value again we have a bucket and the key as a key, and then value key and the value key and key. So at the moment let me go and comment this one. And dev and test, just consider there are two environment, and the bucket name of the bucket, and ACL is private name of the tag, and then name of the environment. You can use that in name of the environment directly, remove this value, and you can use that in as a for each key. We'll also see that. And the provider as usual, what we talk like in region, share credentials and profile, and this is the code we have. Let me go and do that in demo now. So I just want to show you like in this is the Terraform 0.1 4.24 which is for 12 series. Now we have a 13 series. So now printing the versions, it's insisting to go out of the date and latest versions to install these ones. And this is the very interesting features. We'll get that in especially in module. And if you are working in the real project, that will be really help it out. Don't wait for that, and learn it and go and implement it. So and what we have to do now, first command init plan. So it will be go and two resources will be created on basis of that in for each, because we have provided the dev and test in that in a variable sections where we have a dev and test. One more changes I want to do here, instead of these ones I'll use that in this variable is not at all required, and okay. So now as long as we'll use that in our well, we can use directly. So as long as we'll provide that in environment, it's coming as a test, and another one it will become as a dev. Here we have a div. So as long as we have a 2, now if we add that in a third one, what will be happen? It will be added that in a plan as well instead of a 2. So now we'll be get that in a 3. So here we'll go, and then if we'll do that in apply. So before doing the apply, let me comment it out and create that in a 2. So two resources, similar resources will be created in as a bucket, but now we are using the for each instead of using the count. And in earlier, if you'll see that in count, here we are getting the 0 1 2 3. Now we are getting the index position, which is that in key, like in key, and that in a name of the value whatever we are providing, dev and test, and two resource created. If I'll go to that in AWS console, I'll be able to see the two resources created, and so now I'll go and add that in a third one. I'll add the third one and comment the. So now we'll be have a dev and prod. So one resource will be added and another one will be destroyed. Here we go. One is added and one to destroy. And this features is a very interesting if you are working in real project. Again, I'm repeating that will be help it out a more, but at the moment we are using that in plan variable. You can create that in your like in environment specific variable and tfvrs file, and then you can use this ones in dynamic. So now if I'll go and refresh it, you'll be get that in a dev and test. Now I'll go last command is a destroy. I'll update this code in the short section. Just go download and do it. And let me know if you are facing any issue in these features, because same features I'll be adding to the module level, which is new features of Terraform. So instead of what will be the difference in that time, instead of using that in resource, we'll remove this variable for each, we'll add that in module, and in module we'll pass this one, so where we have a more opportunity to use that in a count along with a for each. And here we go. All right, so that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching. Please like, share, and please provide your feedback, which is more important for me. And just consider this is a feedback time, and I'm so much excited to provide that in new features. I'll be at that in my all courses, and thanks for watching.